We've got an update on the health of Marcus Lynn Betts. Will Mookie Betts be in the lineup when the Dodgers open their season domestically against the Tigers? Also, a Shohei Ohtani pitching update. And we are previewing the season with the great Jeff Snider. That's coming up next on Dodgers Dugout Live.
It's time for Dodger Baseball. Welcome to Dodger Stadium.
This is the golden age of Dodger baseball. The Dodgers are building a dynasty.
You guys ready to parade? We got a parade! The Dodgers punch back and head to the championship series! Ohtani starts the 50-50 club! Mookie Magic! Freeman hits the ball to right field! She is gone! Start the party, Los Angeles! Your Dodgers have won the World Series!
Think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out.
What is up, Dodgers Nation, and welcome to another episode of Dodgers Dugout Live, the #1 Dodgers show on YouTube. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. If you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, subscribe to the Dodgers Nation YouTube channel. Just hit 120,000 subscribers, so if you want to be eligible for our next giveaway, a Roki Sasaki jersey, just comment Roki of the Year down below. Also, if you haven't yet, join our Discord channel, and also The Big Lead, my newest show, my show about all sports, 1 hour or less on the hottest stories in sports. Go over and subscribe to The Big Lead. But let's get right into it. Today I'm joined by the host of Locked On Dodgers. I'm a fellow Locked On podcast host to Locked On Rams, so part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jeff Snider, voted one of the best Dodgers ball knowers in the game, the top 5 by me. He's joining us today, and he's en route Utah to LA, making his opening day appearance like he typically does. Jeff, joining us from the road. Jeff, how you doing, my man? And how many opening days in a row is this for you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. And I'm trying to think. I don't know for sure. I know I was there last year. I had season tickets for a decade, and so I was there pretty much I think I missed, obviously there was no season in 2020. So of the 9 seasons that I had season tickets that they played games, I think I missed 1 or 2 home openers for different reasons. I know in 2014, because they started the season in Australia, and the home opener wasn't till like 10 games into the season, and I used to try and time it around my kids' spring break. But yeah, I'd say in the last, this is 13 years now. This will be my 10th probably.
10th. I mean, your favorite opening day moment has to be Kershaw home run, right? George Contos, Giants. That has to be number 1, right?
That was my very first game as a season ticket holder, was that game. It was an amazing game. Nothing going to the bottom of the 8th inning. Kershaw hits a home run to break the scoreless tie. Dodgers end up winning 4-0. It's definitely up there. There was another fun game a couple years later, maybe 2016, when the Dodgers pounded the Padres, hit like 6 or 8 home runs. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, there's been a lot of fun. Even last year was fun. The Dodgers beating the Cardinals after Miles Michaelis had read his mouth a little bit, and the Dodgers said, "Hey, don't forget you're Miles Michaelis." So there's all sorts of fun memories at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, that'll always be it for me, though. I mean, he hits his first and only home run. He became just the second pitcher since Bob Lemon to toss his shutout and hit a home run on opening day. That will live on forever. And you probably think we're going to start with Mookie Betts' illness. You probably think we're going to start with Shohei Ohtani pitching update. Who's going to be in center field for most of the year? Bullpen, starting rotation questions. I want to start with something that fans are talking about on the X, and that is your favorite, Mr. Clayton Edward Kershaw, being on that mural, being on that picture with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman behind him, and people having issue with this because Clayton Kershaw did not participate in the postseason. We saw him after the Dodgers World Series win, grab that mic and say, "Dodger for life," and talk about how big that moment was for him. My take on the situation is the Dodgers have 4 MVPs. The Dodgers have 4 future Hall of Famers, and Clayton Kershaw was a big part of laying the foundation that led to acquiring Mookie Betts and signing Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani. I have absolutely no issue with it, and I think if I had to guess, I would think that most of the organization, most of the clubhouse, if not all the clubhouse organization, love the fact that he's on that mural. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely. Clayton Kershaw is the Dodgers, and as long as he is on the Dodgers, he deserves to be on every mural they make. Like you said, however you want to justify it, the four guys who've won an MVP award, the four guys who are already have punched their ticket to Cooperstown, whatever it is. But the fact is, Shohei Ohtani, part of the reason he wanted to play for the Dodgers is so he could be teammates with Clayton Kershaw. Tyler Glasnow wanted to be teammates with Clayton Kershaw. Blake Snell wanted to be teammates with Clayton Kershaw. All these guys, like Clayton Kershaw, is a draw. And I love bandwagon fans. I think it's important. That's how you grow your fan base. And absolutely, the Dodgers have gained more fans over the last decade as they've won and won. And I'm sure there are some new fans last year. But just because Clayton Kershaw didn't contribute last year doesn't mean you need to forget what he's done over the last 15 years or more and what he means to this Dodgers team. Like, yeah, put him on every mural. Put a mural in my bedroom wall with Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah.
Wherever he wants to be, that's where he needs to be.
Absolutely. I mean, I listened to the quote from Yamamoto when we were in Japan, and Yamamoto straight up said that he admires him very much, and just being in the same space as him, he feels like he becomes better at baseball. So it's tough to even quantify the intangibles and really assess the impact he has on this team because it is felt throughout the organization. I'm with you. I have no doubt about it. You got to celebrate your legends. And I think this season for Clayton Kershaw, we want to see those 32 strikeouts. We want to see him stay healthy. And I think there is going to be a little bit of a bounce back for him this season because, look, I love the fact that it wasn't his arm, right? He said that the arm was feeling really, really good, and he didn't want to waste that surgery. He ended up having surgery on his lower body. So I think that all the Kershaw doubters, I think that they're going to have a rude awakening this season because I think he's going to contribute this year. I mean, what from last season do you think, points to a bounce back, a possible resurgence season for Kersh?
The fact that he's Clayton Kershaw and every year of his career that he's been healthy, he's been excellent. It's never been a question. Like last year, yes, his ERA was 4.5, but that was, a lot, in 6 games, one bad game can boost your ERA. You look at Clayton Kershaw's career and his stuff has been diminished for 8 years now. We've been wringing our hands about, oh no, the fastball velocity's down. And yet still, season after season, when he's healthy, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball. And there's no reason to think that's going to change. I guess maybe at some point age catches up with everybody. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is Kershaw's last season. If he gets to 3,000 strikeouts and they win another World Series, then maybe it's a good time to ride off into the sunset. So maybe that's another reason put him on the mural. But yeah, until Clayton Kershaw actually pitches poorly, which he hasn't, I'm not going to just assume he's going to pitch poorly.
Absolutely. I think that you're totally onto something that crossed my mind too when seeing him on that mural is they realize what's at stake this season is getting those 32 strikeouts, having him contribute to a World Series title, and then riding off into the sunset as the player that ties the record for most seasons with the Dodgers at 18, and then rides off in the sunset as a future first ballot Hall of Famer that's going to have a statue at Dodger Stadium. You also brought up the fact that from a ERA standpoint, you look at those numbers, you say, okay, 4.5 ERA. You look at the FIP at high 4.43 expected ERA in 7 starts, 24 strikeouts, 9 walks, and 30 innings. You're like, wait a second, what is this guy going to provide? Is this guy washed? And then you dive deeper into it, and you realize that to start his year, in his first 5 starts back, he actually posted a 2.63 ERA, a 3 FIP, had 1 bad start. He gave the 5 runs in 5 innings against the Rays on August 24th. So, yes, I'm...
That was probably the toe.
Exactly, and it was the toe. He was still dealing with it, and that toe was stubborn last season, right? And he tried to come back despite. So I like it. We're both on the same page. I knew what I was going to get out of you when it comes to Clayton Kershaw. You were a devout Christian. We know that you believe in the Church of Christianity. We understand that. But let's talk about the hottest story in Dodger baseball right now, Jeff, and that is this mysterious illness that Mookie Betts has at the moment. And a couple days ago, I did like what I heard from him. I mean, he said that he was miserable. He said that he had the 2 worst flights of his life. He said that he couldn't eat anything without throwing up. Now, I just got back from Japan. I did see Mookie, and he walked past me. I asked Mookie, hey, how you feeling, man? I heard you're sick and this and that. And he said, I'm not feeling great, but I'm going to be cool. I'm going to be fine. Felt like he was more optimistic. And then a couple days went by, did not get better, and then was scratched from the lineup. And now all of a sudden he's holding down food. He's getting better. And then Dave Roberts says that if everything goes as planned, he's going to be in the lineup and potentially start on opening day. My question to you is, even if he is holding down food and he is getting better, would you have him in the lineup to start opening day?
I wouldn't, but there's a caveat to that. I am neither a doctor nor do I play one on TV, and I've never even met Mookie Betts, let alone examined him medically. And so I firmly believe that the Dodgers are much more invested in Mookie's long-term success than I am, and they are going to be extra cautious. So if Mookie's in the lineup, I have to assume it will be because the medical professionals determined that he's not at risk of hurting himself. That's really the only concern. Like, Mookie can still be a good player without power, even if he's, not, he'll still build his strength back up. So he's a singles hitter instead of a home run hitter. He can be a good player. The only concern for me is he at risk of pulling a hammy or some sort of tissue injury because he's weakened? And, I'm not qualified to answer that question. That question will be answered by people who are qualified to answer it and who really, really care about the answer. And so that's my caveat. I wouldn't put him in the lineup, but if smarter people than me say he's good to go, then I'll be fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic point. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where the Dodgers are always going to err on the side of caution, especially with their superstars. There's a reason why we didn't see Freddie Freeman in Tokyo. There's a reason why we didn't see Mookie Betts in Tokyo. And I think considering the offseason he had, where he went to Japan and had a big impact on him, he wanted to play in that game. And he also wants to be a part of ring ceremony on Friday. He wants to open the season as the Dodgers opening day shortstop. That stuff means something to Marcus Lynn Betts. I think, too, he wants to show people, hey, this is not all talk. I did spend the entire offseason knowing I was going to be the shortstop, making those adjustments, being more of a fluid shortstop, being able to make those throws, not having the errors piled up. I think he's anxious to get going with that. I think it's a part of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a lot to prove to himself and to the fans. And I know that's part of, he's the ultimate competitor, and that's part of why he wants to be on the field. And I get that for sure. And I think the Dodgers will factor all of that in. And you have to respect that drive, that desire to be on the field. And that's why I do think they will defer to him. If they determine that he's not at risk of hurting himself, then they're going to say, I'll take a 80% Mookie Betts over 100% Miguel Rojas. We said that last night, so people got mad on Locked on Dodgers. That is 100% a statement about Mookie Betts and not about Miguel Rojas. But Mookie Betts deserves to play if he wants to play. Food. It was also held down food, and he went through a full baseball workout. And that's the more important part, to see he's doing baseball stuff. How does he feel today? All those things. That's going to determine whether he is going to be in the lineup. Can he be a baseball player?
Bro. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think for me, when it comes to Mookie Betts, it's, are you buying into the fact that he can be an average everyday shortstop? Because if he's an average everyday shortstop, he is an elite shortstop when you combine the defense with the offense and what he can provide from both standpoints. But we're going to do some buying and selling throughout this show. Are you truly buying that from Mookie Betts? I typically have drank the Kool-Aid this offseason. Andrew Friedman told me, hey, you don't bet against Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts told me, hey, I want to go out there and win a Gold Glove. And it's kind of one of those things, hey, if you're anywhere close to a Gold Glove and you're Mookie Betts and you're a 140 WRC plus or above type of player, that is something that is additive at that position. But are you buying that? I mean, I look at, if it doesn't happen, you're one of the few teams in Major League Baseball that has a defensive Gold Glove caliber shortstop in Miguel Rojas, and then behind him you have an above average shortstop in Tommy Edman. Even behind that you have Kike Hernandez and Chris Taylor. List goes on and on. So you have the insurance if you're the Dodgers, but are you buying the idea of a wire-to-wire average adequate shortstop that also continues with the bat all season long with Mookie?
I am, and I'll tell you why. Because most of Mookie's issues at shortstop last year were the throws. Mookie looked fine. He just made some bad throws. I think, all of his errors except for one were throwing errors. And if there's one thing we know about Mookie Betts, it's that he's got a good arm, that he can throw a baseball. And so it's all about the footwork. It's a different throw from shortstop than from right field. And so being thrust into the starting job last year with 2 weeks left in spring training, that was a different. He didn't have the time to really figure out the footwork. But reading all about all the work he put in with Petey Montero this offseason, working on the footwork, working on the throws. And you and I both watched him in spring training this year. Like, he looks like a shortstop. He is playing like a shortstop. The throws are he's gonna make a throwing error here and there. But overall, I think the throws, we're going to see a vastly improved Mookie Betts at shortstop, and that alone puts him to above average defensively. And that's plenty for me. I'll take average. Like you said, with him hitting the way he is, I know a lot of people have concerns that the rigors of playing shortstop every day will affect his offense. And they point to last year how Mookie was slumping even before he got hurt. But that's also the nature of Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts has always been a streaky hitter. And if you look at his pull up his splits on Baseball Reference in 2024, his numbers by position, his best overall numbers were as a shortstop. And some of that is because of the hot start to start the season. But I always think it's funny that at the beginning of the season, people were saying, oh, Mookie's hot at the plate because he's having to focus so much on shortstop. He doesn't have time to think about hitting. He just gets in there and lets his natural ability take over. And then when he starts slumping, it's, oh, Mookie has to focus so much on shortstop that he doesn't have time to think about hitting, so he's slumping. It's like, he's just a baseball player. Hitting the baseball is hard. He's going to have slumps. But I really believe that Mookie is going to be Mookie at the plate over the course of the full season. And if he can be even average defensively, he will be elite. And I think he's going to be better than average defensively.
Yeah, that is the $1 million question, right? I mean, if you look at just the overall numbers, a minus 4 outs above average, that was 48 out of 53 shortstops, a negative 4.6 use yard, that was 49th. I mean, a lot of defensive metrics take years to really make complete sense of at that position. But I think you brought up a fantastic point in that there's going to be a lot of narrative building with Mookie Betts early on in the season. I mean, people might even tie to the health thing that we're talking about right now. Did he get fully healthy? And that's the number one thing I'm looking at is, will the offense take a hit because he has to expend so much energy on defense, the physicality of that position? Miguel Rojas was on the show. He asked him period point blank, at some point, does playing shortstop affect your offense? And he said yes, but Miguel Rojas isn't Mookie Betts at the plate, right? Mookie Betts is never Miguel Rojas at the stick with the stick. So you had to consider that as well. But last season, those power numbers went down a little bit. Weighted runs created plus went from a 166 to 141. If he's at last year's numbers with average defense, you're here for it. But let's say there's a dip where it's like he's at a 120 weighted runs created plus, or the slug is significantly down, and that's something that lasts for a month or two. That's going to be a part where you're kind of wondering, is Mookie being honest with himself about how the defense impacts the offense? But that's going to be a big question for me.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something to keep an eye on. And, as much as the Dodgers have talked about being all in on Mookie at shortstop, I think the fact that they traded Gavin Lux tells us that they are at least allowing for the possibility that Mookie has to end up at second base, because, if they were sure Mookie was going to stick at shortstop, Gavin Lux is a great option at second base. I think Gavin Lux is going to be a solid hitter, all those things. But if Mookie has to move back to second base, well, we know Gavin Lux can't play shortstop. And so I think that's why the Dodgers made that move, was because there was question marks about Mookie playing the full season at shortstop. Obviously, Tommy Edman having more defensive flexibility than Gavin Lux, all those things. I think the Gavin Lux trade was mostly about Mookie Betts, and that is kind of telling to me that while the Dodgers are optimistic and maybe even confident, they're not sure that Mookie is going to be playing shortstop in August, September, October. And that's fine too. I think he deserves a chance to try. But I haven't seen really anything other than people thinking, oh, I bet it's because he's playing shortstop that the offense is suffering. Whereas, like I said, you look at his numbers last year, I think it was mostly the broken hand, because he took a while to come back from that, and it takes a while to come back from an injury. So he's slumping a little bit before he got hurt, and then getting those numbers back up after he got hurt. But that's when he was in right field, and it's the numbers were still down from what they normally were. So I'm not too worried about the offensive side of things.
Yeah, I think for me, it's way more nuanced than just this leading to this and that leading to that. I mean, Mookie's 32. He's going to turn 33 this season. You don't know when players are going to fall out of their prime. You're going to see such a dip. When you're a player like Mookie Betts that has had such a high peak, even that next tier down is better than most players' peaks, right? So I think if you're the Dodgers, he's one of those few guys. He's on a short list of guys that, like you said, has earned this opportunity to say, hey, if he wants to prove to the world, I can play shortstop and I can try to win an FU Gold Glove or something like that. Then let's give him the opportunity, because if it works out, then it helps us in the long run, and then you can use guys at other positions. Now, pretty much the most fascinating position to me, it has to be center field. I mean, you look at the center field spot for the Dodgers, it's the one where it's, are we going defense? Are we going offense? Are we going to go with the platoon situation? Do we truly think that Andy Pages has the ability to be an everyday player? He had the second best OPS against lefties last season, a 917 against southpaws. That was only behind Teoscar Hernandez. So even in his slumps last season, he raked against southpaws. During spring training, he's had some moments. For the most part, I mean, it's hit 212, 619 OPS. Can't take too much away from spring training numbers. But just where are you at with center field?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's tough.
Tommy Edman is a Gold Glove second baseman. I like Tommy Edman at second base. But the defense in center is a concern. Center field, like shortstop, those are the two positions where, when we were growing up, you don't need too much offense from your center fielder or your shortstop. You need good defense. Well, Pages isn't going to give you good defense. He may be able to give average defense. And you can see, I mean, we had it just the other night in, I can't remember which Angels game it was, but there was a fly ball that probably should have been caught. That, Kevin Kiermaier definitely would have caught. Tommy Edman probably would have caught. Andy Pages played it on a bounce, and those things add up, and they're not errors, but every out that you don't make in the outfield is a hit for the other team. And a lot of times in the outfield, it's an extra base hit. And so, that stuff matters. Andy Pages is going to have to hit his way into being the starter, because if he's hitting like a center fielder, like a 1980s center fielder, but he's playing defense like last year's Andy Pages in center, that's not a major league caliber center fielder. So that, I think that's a big question mark. Obviously, James Outman would be a better option defensively, but James Outman, I love the guy, but he needs to figure out how to hit the baseball with the baseball bat, which is a big part of being a hitter, and that's he went through a swing change. Maybe he is just one tweak away from figuring it out, and maybe James Outman ends up the center fielder when he figures out how to hit. But even in Outman's rookie year, when he was good, finished third in the Rookie of the Year voting, you look at his strikeout rate, and it was always concerning. And it was always like, can you actually sustain success with that much trouble putting the bat on the ball? And throughout the history of baseball, you look at it, and the answer to that question is usually no. And so Outman's going to have to figure out how to be a better contact hitter. And so far this spring, he's been the opposite of that. And so, yeah, I mean, Tommy Edman might end up your best option in center field, but he's definitely your best option at second base, at least right now.
Yeah, I think the path for Outman has to be he gets an opportunity through injury and then shows that he can hit. He gets hot early in that stretch, and they say, can you continue this because we trust the defense? Because you just can't have a guy that's striking out 35% of the time, that's 46% below league average offensively. If he was just more respectable as a bat, closer to league average, then you say, okay, let's lean on defense and your plus on that end versus what you can do offensively. But we've seen with this organization, if you can hit, you're going to play. If you can hit, they're going to give you opportunities. But to me, it's a little bit of a concern, if I'm being honest, as far as you look at the outfield picture. Conforto's passable in left. Teoscar is better in right than he is in left, and the metrics kind of bear that out. But really, you're looking at an average to, at best, defensive outfield to a below average defensive outfield. But if you have Tommy Edman there, you have a guy that's above average. If you have even Kike Hernandez, I think you feel better about his defense as well. And kind of something I'm thinking about is like, look, I mean, if Kike, I mean, he went 0 for 5 and then, he hits a home run. He's a very streaky player. What does a full goggle season look like for Kike? Because for his career, 7% below league average in the regular season. We know he's a monster in the postseason, and you don't want to lose his versatility. That's why he's on this team, because he can play so many positions: third, short, second, all the outfield spots, pitcher. Hey, let Kike catch, right? But if things get to a point where Paz is struggling offensively, defensively, you're saying, okay, you're average at best. They don't trust James Outman. They want to keep Tommy Edman at second. Maybe you do consider Kike, and maybe you trade for Luis Robert Jr. at the deadline, because I need a trade. I can't go a whole year without a big trade. I mean, please, Andrew Friedman, help me from that standpoint.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for somebody who strikes out less, I don't know that Luis Robert Jr. is your answer.
He does damage.
But a lot of this, one of the names we haven't mentioned is Ha-Seong Kim. How did he develop as a hitter? Because if he can figure out how to hit in the United States, well, then maybe he's at second base, and that pushes Edman back to center field. Or, they've had Kim playing some center field in spring training too. Obviously, elite athlete, could definitely has the potential to be an above average defensive center fielder. He's a guy who could come into play. Kike Hernandez, though, specifically, I think he's going to get a lot of playing time between a lot of different positions because, like you said, he can play center field. I thought it was interesting that the first game against the Cubs in Tokyo, in the original lineup before Freddie Freeman was scratched, Kike was in left field instead of Michael Conforto against Shota Imanaga. It made me wonder, obviously, like last year, Conforto hit lefties better than he hit righties, but for his career, he's a typical lefty. He hits righties better than he hits lefties. And was that kind of a clue to us that against a tough lefty like Shota Imanaga or, for instance, Tarek Skubal on Thursday, are we going to see Michael Conforto on the bench? Max Muncy throughout his career has hit lefties well. The last couple of years, not as much. And so he's another guy. Both of those guys, left field and third base, obvious spots for Kike to get starts against left-handed pitching. I think we'll see Kike against right-handed pitching too sometimes, whether it's in center field for Pajes, because Kike isn't really a big splits guy. He hits lefties and righties roughly equally well. Sorry, I got the hiccup. So that Diet Coke I'm driving to keep me awake drinking to keep me awake while I drive.
Switch to Coke Zero. It's better.
Maybe I'll try that at the next potty break. But Kike's going to get a lot of playing time, and whether it's let's put Edman in center and put Kike at second base, which we saw the other night a little bit. Kike, I would guess Kike is getting at least 100 starts this year at a lot of different positions. Heck, even some first base, maybe, depending on how much rest Freddie Freeman needs. As much as the Dodgers kind of come into this with, the plan of Conforto being your everyday left fielder and Paz being your everyday center fielder and Muncy being your everyday third baseman, there's going to be they're still the Dodgers. There's going to be some platoons going on.
Absolutely. And I like to bring that up, though. I mean, left field is a question mark, and it's a fascinating angle to talk about just because last season you look at left field, it was mostly Teoscar Hernandez. It was mostly a spot where Teo took over. 104 starts, played 871 and 2/3 innings in left. And then you remember Jason Hayward. He had 49 starts there, played 434 innings there in left field. And Chris Taylor still on the team. And Michael Conforto is interesting to me because last season he had those reverse splits, had an 886 OPS versus lefties compared to 724 versus righties. For the most part in his career, that hasn't been the case. So it's a small sample size. But early on the season, we know that Conforto, he's here on a one-year deal to get back on track, to put himself in a position to sign a nice deal, like a Teoscar, like a JD Martinez, one of those types. So we know that he wants to get as many plate appearances, as many games as possible. But left field's going to be interesting for sure. Now, as far as buying and selling, brought up Chris Taylor. I mean, it's kind of funny, Jeff, and I'm sure you get this a lot on your show. For a guy that gets a handful at bats every single week, doesn't play that many games, a guy that did play in the World Series and the NLCS, and the Dodgers still won. A lot of Dodgers fans think having Chris Taylor on the roster is going to lead to not winning the World Series, and that he heavily impacts their chances of winning. But are you buying or selling the idea that if he struggles mightily early on in the season, in the opportunities that he is given, that the Dodgers could potentially move on from him early on in the season?
I think it's possible, but like you said, he's the 26th man on the roster. He is the guy. Maybe he's battling Austin Barnes for that title of 26th man on the roster. Those are two guys. Barnes is going to get a start or two a week because he's a backup catcher, and that's what backup catchers do. Chris Taylor is not going to play as much as Austin Barnes, and that's kind of all you need to know about how much he's going to impact things. He can come in as a defensive replacement. He still plays good defense. He has a little bit of lightning in a bottle. He can sometimes rip you a double in the gap, but most of the time he's not going to be he's going to have very few meaningful at bats this year until he proves that he can hit. And it's kind of interesting though, like last year, I don't know how much you watch Locked on Dodgers, Doug, so maybe you've heard this. From the All-Star break to the end of the season, Doug, I'm going to name 3 players. I want you to rank them in order of their OPS plus last year for the All-Star break to the end of the season. Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, Tommy Edman.
Chris Taylor actually hit over 300 for the last 6 weeks of the season. So Edman he had the multi-home run game, and Kike struggled. But I would say probably Kike, Chris Taylor, and then Edman.
That's correct.
Boom.
Kike was one point better than Chris Taylor from the All-Star break to the end of the season. Obviously, Kike's improvement came a little bit later in the season when he got the glasses. But Chris Taylor wasn't terrible. He had a terrible season. He finished the season over 200 in batting average, and that was when he was well under 100 for the first 2 months of the season. I mean, he ended up being just fine for a 26 guy on the roster, especially when he plays good defense. And so if he can do that, yeah, he strikes out way too much. It is frustrating, but he's not a guy who's going to be pinch hitting in a tie game in the 9th inning. He's a guy who's going to be coming in the 8th inning to play center field because you're up by 4 runs and you want to get Andy Paez out of there defensively. That role, I think, is just fine for Chris Taylor. Now, if injuries come up and they need somebody more important, it's not going to be Chris Taylor filling in that role. And so I think it's very easy to see a scenario where Chris Taylor just hangs out on this roster all season. There's the talk of the 10 years of service time that, he's going to hit. And I think it's like August. I think that's important to the Dodgers. I don't think it's going to make their decision for them. But yeah, I think the Dodgers care enough about Chris Taylor, the person, enough about Chris Taylor, the historically good Dodger, all those things that, yeah, if they can keep him on the roster till he hits 10 years of service time, they're definitely going to try to do that. But the main thing is he serves a role as the 26th man on the roster, the 13th position player, that he's just fine at that role.
Exactly. And look, the truth of the matter is there's certain guys on the team that need to have minimal at-bats, and you can't develop guys by having them have that spot. I mean, Dalton Rushing and James Outman, Andy Paez, whoever Hassan Kim, he brought him up. You can't have him on the roster getting 5 at-bats per week and hope that they can catch up to big league pitching. That's just not how it works. And look, the Dodgers have 13 million reasons to keep him on the team. I don't think that is a deal breaker. He does have a $12 million club option, but Chris Taylor is someone that, like you said, serves a role on this team, is not the reason why they are going to win or lose a World Series. And look, other thing too, I love me some Vince Samperio, right? Your co-host. He's my guy. And I can't lose that tweet. It's one of my favorite Dodgers tweets over the last decade. The Dodgers acquired Chris Taylor for Zach Lee, right? We need that tweet forever. Am I right?
Yeah. Chris Taylor has been a huge part of Dodger history the last 7-8 years. Starting in 2017. I remember when the Dodgers traded for him in 2016, and that was before we were Locked on Dodgers. Vince and I were doing a weekly podcast back then, and we talked about it, and we were so dismissive. Well, I guess we might as well talk about this since we're never going to say the name Chris Taylor again. And then 2017, he's like one of their best players, one of their most important players. And there's definitely value in that. But I think a really good point you made, Doug, is, we always have people say, why would they send down David Bodie? He's better than Chris Taylor. Why would they send down Dalton Rushing? He's better than Chris Taylor. Hae-Sung Kim he doesn't strike out as much as Chris Taylor. All these guys need at bats. David Bodie is going through a swing change. And, I expect to see David Bodie. I think if he can, continue in AAA to show, I actually turned myself into a really good hitter, then we'll see David Bodie at some point, maybe to replace Chris Taylor. But right now, Dalton Rushing would not make sense because he needs playing time. Dalton Rushing needs to play every day. If we get to a point where, Freddie Freeman's out for a while and they decide that they need to give Shohei a day off a week, well, then maybe you start thinking about Dalton Rushing to replace Austin Barnes as the backup catcher, knowing that he can catch 2 games and play 2 games at first and a game at DH every week or whatever. Maybe that's a possibility. But right now, Chris Taylor is in that sweet spot of, we don't care about his future. We don't care about his development. If Chris Taylor is terrible next year because he didn't get any at-bats this year, that's fine. What we need is a guy who can come in and play late-inning defense and occasionally pinch run for somebody or whatever. And you cannot put a good player as your 26th man on the roster because there aren't enough at-bats for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, some players need more wax the pinata, right? And Rushing is one of those guys. And some of these other guys in the roster are that too. And I think with Chris Taylor, he's there too. But I will say, though, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, they kind of moved out Bellinger a couple years ago, and they have shown that they're not afraid to move off a guy, even though he's played a big role for this organization. I mean, this is a roster that's going to cost them nearly $500 million when it's all said and done. I don't think $13 million is ultimately going to decide that. I do think the 10 years of
factor. The Dodgers front office understands sunk costs more than any other front office.
For sure. No, I mean, it's like you go see a movie and you want to see the end of it just because you paid the movie price. Have you ever walked out of a movie? I walked out, I think it was Blair Witch Project 2. I think
mine was, what was it called? It had Colin Farrell in it. Will Smith was in it, but he wasn't credited. He played the devil. It was like the trailer made it look like some love story. My wife and I went and saw it on Valentine's Day, and it was this weird supernatural, like evil thing that Colin Farrell, Winter's Tale is what it's called. Worst movie in the history of the world. Oh man, that thing was a clunker.
Actually,
this episode is sponsored by Winter's Tale, starring Colin Farrell.
That's the reason why I walked out of Blair Witch Project 2 was because the projector got on fire. Mama didn't raise no quitter over here. Okay, I'm not quitting on anything, but yeah, that's the thing with the Dodgers.
Never give up, Doug.
Never give up. Absolutely. Now, Jeff, moving to third base too. Not a lot of people are talking about this. I don't believe is that look. Max Muncy is someone when he's healthy, he's an above average back. Gets you 30 home runs, gets you 100 RBIs. Last year he did struggle against lefties, and if that continues again, do you think that's a platoon situation?
I think it's the most likely platoon situation. Just really quick, what I was saying about Conforto, I wasn't implying that I think he will be platooned. I do think when he does get days off, it will be against tough lefties, but it won't be a straight, he's going to sit against lefties. Muncy could turn into a sits almost all the time against lefties, but I think that would be mid-season if he's really struggling. Because like I said, for his first 3 years with the Dodgers, he was really good against lefties. And there's been injuries and stuff since then. I think the Dodgers still believe that guy is still in there, and I kind of believe it too. But if we get to June, July, and he's still struggling mightily against lefties, then yeah, I think Kike Hernandez probably starts getting the bulk of the starts at third base against left-handed pitching maybe. I think there's also some concern with Muncy's injury last year. Obviously, an oblique it takes a long time to heal. And I think with Muncy's body type, which I think I'm authorized to speak on because I have a much worse body type than Max Muncy, and so I'm punching up on this. But I think there's probably some concern with such a thick young man like Max Muncy that the oblique could be a recurring thing, and so maybe that means giving him more days off than usual just for maintenance reasons. And yeah, any days off he does get will be against lefties, because why would you sit him against a righty? And so it might look like a platoon, or at least, he may sit half the time against lefties, even if he's hitting lefties just fine, just for maintenance reasons, for load management, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I think that they realize that the oblique. I mean, shout out to that chiropractor who magically got him right last season, and he had the on-base streak during the NLCS. He kind of struggled in the World Series. He's someone that's been streaky throughout his career, but you mentioned the weight loss and just kind of the body type. I think he thinks he's playing for his Dodgers future this season. I think that's a subplot that no one's talking about, is the fact that he's got that club option for 2026. I think it's 12 million, something in that range. He wants to sign a bigger deal to finish his career with the Dodgers. He already really signed a team-friendly contract a couple years ago when he signed that $24 million deal. So yeah, it's actually a $10 million club option for 2026. A guy that hits 30 home runs and give you a 3-WAR season for $10 million is an absolute bargain, and it's going to be a big year. I mean, just kind of looking at the future, do you see Muncy as the Dodgers third baseman in 2026? Because that's the only spot for him, right? There's a guy named Shohei Ohtani playing DH. I think he's got that spot held down pretty well. There's a guy named Freddie Freeman. I think he stays at first. Don't see him at second base with the changes to the restrictions to the shift. It feels like it's third or bust moving forward for Max Muncy, and this is going to be a big year to determine that. One of the storylines for the 2025 Dodgers season.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, there will eventually be an opening at first base. Freddie Freeman won't play forever, but I don't think it's crazy to think Freddie Freeman could play as long as Max Muncy. So I don't know that opening will be there for Max Muncy. That might be more of a Josue de Paula conversation than a Max Muncy conversation. But yeah, so it seems like it's got to be third base. Max Muncy did make the All-Star team as a second baseman a few years ago, but that was before the shift was banned. I'm not convinced that Muncy has the range to play second base in a no-shift Major League Baseball. And so, you know, other than it's got to be third base, or they decide to go back to trying him in left field like he did a little bit early in his career. And he kind of threw that idea out there this past offseason that he's willing to play wherever, play the outfield if that's what the team needs. Or he transfers into that role of being the platoon guy and being one of the bench guys. But I do think you're right that he is playing this year to prove that he should be back next year at least. But it's probably going to be year to year for Muncy for the rest of his career at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's 80 home runs from Eric Karros to tie for the most home runs in Los Angeles Dodgers history. He's going to go up the rankings this season, passing Carl Furillo, should pass Matt Kemp. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, at that price, at the value that he provides, I like Max Muncy. I would like, hey man, if the Blue Jays don't get that $577 million extension done with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., have Vladdy play third, then moving over to first when Freddie Freeman moves on. That's you don't like that? I mean, I want to see Vladdy on my team. I like boppers. I need boppers, baby.
I mean, I wasn't sure if I'm zoomed in enough for you to see that face.
No,
Guerrero is not a third baseman. Lots of guys moved from third base to first
Murakami,
base.
really.
But Vlad Guerrero, they moved him like immediately. Like that, he's that dude. Yeah, I love Vlad as a hitter, but Vlad is not going to play third base for the Dodgers.
I kid. I just want baseball fans to be mad. I like him. I want them to have to.
Why don't you bring up trading for Nolan Arenado while we're at it?
Oh, I've kind of moved on from that. I mean, honestly, but switching to starting pitching. Tyler Glasnow has looked really good this spring. Last night he looked good again. I mean, the punch outs, the velocity, the curveball, the way that the adjustments have been made. I talked to him and he said that it's really subtle as far as the adjustments, is to take less force off his elbow and it's to make it more athletic and it's to stay angular towards the plate. Are you buying the adjustments leading to a healthy Cy Young level type of season for Glasnow?
Quality-wise, yes. Quantity-wise, no. I think that, obviously our dream as Dodger fans is for Tyler Glasnow to be healthy the whole season, throw 180 awesome innings, and then dominate in October. I think the last part of that is the only part the Dodgers care about, and I think part of their goal of getting him to October is that they're going to be hyper vigilant. Last night I coined the term, instead of phantom IL, I'm calling it the hair trigger IL, where they're not making injuries, but if Tyler Glasnow feels anything, boom, you're on the shelf for 15 days, And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tyler Glasnow on the IL 3 different times this year for the minimum 15 days, but just, any tiny thing, because they want him in October. The Dodgers last year saw how hard it is I know they won the World Series. That was in spite of their starting pitching, not because of their starting pitching. The Dodgers really want to have healthy elite starting pitchers in October. And I think their goal is for their October starting rotation to be Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Shohei Ohtani, and Roki Sasaki. 4 out of those 5 guys, they want all of them available. They want to have a hard decision to make on who their 4 starters are going to be. Whereas last year was like, well, you have a pulse, so I guess you're in the rotation. And that's going to lead them to, while I expect Tyler Glasnow to be awesome, I think he's going to pitch maybe 120 innings this year. So not in the contention for the Cy Young Award by any means, but in contention for World Series MVP, absolutely.
Yeah, I just kind of mean from like a rate standpoint. I mean, his rate stats have always been so phenomenal when he's been healthy. I mean, you look at in the spring a 3.27 ERA, 19 punch-outs, and 11 innings of work. And I just think that it is the ultimate way to epitomize the Dodgers' embarrassment of pitches from a starting rotation standpoint, that their 4th starter to open up the season could be their best starter. I mean, that's how dominant Tyler Glasnow. Just look at that start, 14 strikeouts in less than 90 pitches, the first time that's been done last year against the Twins on the road. I don't think it gets talked about enough just how good he is, just because people are always like, okay, fine, because it comes with the caveat, he's going to get injured. But hey, I think that the fact they're making the adjustments, the fact that they have the depth, the fact that they are going to go off last year's data points, which is in August, he wore down. How do we get him to August and September and October to get him healthy? And I think that the depth of this roster is going to play a big factor. And I agree with you 100% that if there's anything, if that check engine light comes on for a second, they're going right to the dealership, they're going right to the mechanic, and they're going to drop that thing off. They're not going to get it back until it's fully recovered, for sure. Now, it's
not even the check engine light. It's the low gas light. Like,
okay, there you go.
We're talking. In fact, if his turn signal he forgets to turn his turn signal off, they're going to sit him down for 15 days.
Yeah, no, for sure. The seatbelt button. I mean, yeah, just get him right, because he is that kind of guy, for sure. Now, I think
this analogy did not go off the rails at all.
Hey, I love it though. It's all good. It's all good. As far as Shohei Ohtani, so Dave said yesterday Shohei's going to throw a bullpen on Saturday, first time since February 25th that they're getting the throwing program just continuing to ramp it up. Now, my sense for Shohei is, it's a second Tommy John surgery, coming off of labrum surgery, coming off a 50-50 season. I think they're looking for 10 to 15 starts from him, and they're okay with that if he's bringing 98 to 100 with a nasty splitty and sweeper into the postseason, and they will be happy. They are going to have guys like Landon Ack, Bobby Miller, guys like Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May. They're going to use these guys all season long, because they know that when the rubber meets the road in the postseason, that you're going to want a guy like Shohei Ohtani at his best. And I think that this is all a part of that. So anyone that's rushing to see Shohei in May, even June, I think needs to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, no way he's going over 100 innings pitched this year. And, like you said, 10 or 15, if he makes 15 starts, 6 innings each, that's 90 innings pitched. I think 80 to 90 innings is probably a more realistic expectation. And again, that has more to do with the Dodgers setup than anything else, because, coming off the second surgery, you're going to want to limit his output, and you're going to want to make sure you're getting his best innings in October, whether that is as a starter or, I'm always intrigued by the idea of Shohei as a reliever. The hard part of that is he'd have to be the closer, because the Shohei Ohtani rule only applies to the starting pitcher. And so if you bring him into the 7th inning, then when you take him out, he also has to be out of the game hitting wise, which is not ideal. That's the only thing keeping me from saying, is put Shohei in the bullpen in October if they've got plenty of healthy arms. But, you didn't even mention Clayton Kershaw and Emmett Sheehan, both coming back later in the season. What's his name? Jackson Ferris. He's knocking on the door. He's going to, by August, he's going to be saying, hey, what am I still doing in the minors, guys? You looking at these numbers? So, they've got so many options that, there's going to be plenty of ways to limit Shohei Ohtani's innings. And I think the one that makes the most sense right now, since he is, recovering from hitting surgery too. So he's recovering from 2 different surgeries. Let him focus on the hitting surgery, because that's where the Dodgers need him right now. And then, gradually get back up to the pitching, and whether it's June or July that he's ready to pitch. And then, he runs low on gas in August, and sit him down for, even if you just skip a start, without, whatever it is, go that way, and that way you run your best chance of having a version of Shohei Ohtani in October that's ready to pump 98 and be dominant.
I could not agree with you more. I think that's what it's all about. And I think, too, he's so important to this offense that if you lose a potential 40, 50 home run guy that had a 9.2 WAR season just as a DH, that is going to significantly impact this team's chances of finishing with the best record in the sport like they did last year with 98 wins and just putting themselves in the best position to go back to back. So you just can't risk that in any way. What did you make of Barry Bonds' comments about Shohei that he should just stick to hitting? My read on that was, I know Barry Bonds, I know how he operates, and I think that, look, Barry Bonds wants to say, hey, if he's not pitching, then you compare just me and him as hitters. Maybe you can make the case I'm a better hitter than Shohei Ohtani even before the roids, right? If you look at the numbers, and I think that that's kind of part of that too. But then you add the unicorn element of it and his ability to pitch at a top 10 level. There's no comparison between Barry Bonds and Shohei Ohtani. But look, keep the Dodgers out of your mouth, Barry. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also don't think that necessarily means that Barry Bonds is wrong. My brother has been firmly in the camp of he doesn't want Shohei to pitch. He just wants him to hit. And, that does open up, I bet Shohei could be a pretty good center fielder. If he wasn't worrying about pitching, or even a shortstop, who knows? He'd probably be a corner outfielder I do think if he stops pitching, he will start playing the outfield, and maybe that's how they open up, a spot for Max Muncy. You can play first base or DH or whatever. But yeah, I need to see Shohei pitching as a Dodger, at least for a year or two. The unicorn aspect, I will be sad if he's only a unicorn in an Angels uniform. I need him to be a unicorn for the Dodgers, and whether that's a year or 2 years or 3 years, I think when the Dodgers signed Ohtani, they were probably thinking 3 or 4 years of him pitching. Knowing he was going to miss the first year pitching, I think they were thinking 3 or 4 years. I don't think they expect him to pitch for this whole 10-year contract. I just hope that when he decides to be done pitching, it's a decision and not an injury, because an injury could take him out of hitting for a while. And, if it happens mid-season, that would be pretty lousy if Shohei Ohtani's having another great season offensively and then he hurts his elbow in September, and that means he can't hit in October. I think that's all the stuff they have to weigh. But we've got to see Shohei on the mound in a Dodger uniform, at least for a little while. Yeah, and
I'm of the camp. I couldn't disagree more with people that think that he should just hit and abandon being a pitcher. I think that for Barry Bonds, it was, we got to check him for steroids. For Shohei Ohtani, it's like we have to check if he's human, if he's not an alien from another planet, because no one's been able to do this. And I think Barry Bonds, it wasn't old man yells at clouds. It was old cheater yells at generational talent, right? I mean, we don't need to see that. And I think for Shohei, if you can pitch at a top 10 level, if the velocity is still there, and if even there is a dip of production to where it's not 54 home runs, it's 40, and the batting average is around 300, and it's still, I think you do this as long as you can, because that's what makes him the undeniable best player of all time when he was at his best. If you just look at his offensive stats, they're going to be similar to Barry Bonds or some of the great players, the Willie Mazes of the world at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, will he have the counting stats on those guys, right? I think at his age, maybe not. I mean, at the end of the day, it'd be tough. But if he does what he does at a top 10 level on both sides for the next 4 to 5 years, I think that he goes down as the greatest, most talented player in the history of Major League Baseball. And it'd be kind of cool if that player was wearing a Dodgers uniform.
Yeah, most talented for sure. The only question is, can he put up the volume to be the greatest?
Yeah.
It's also, he won 2 MVPs with the Angels. He's now won 1 with the Dodgers. I'm going to need at least 2 more with the Dodgers to make sure that, basically, I want everything at the end of Shohei Ohtani's career. I want there to be no question that the best part of his career came in real Los Angeles.
I love that, in real Los Angeles. Yeah, absolutely. Anaheim is not Los Angeles. And yeah, I was the same way with Mookie Betts, his MVP season versus what we've seen with the Dodgers. And it's crazy with Shohei. You look at the year he had last year with the Dodgers versus some of his years with the Angels. I mean, that 2023 season, they're very, very close. The year with the Dodgers, though, by weighted runs created plus, that was his best individual season offensively. So we already have that on our side. So a couple quick ones before you get you out of here, Jeff. If there's one concern that you have for this team, and like I've said it, there's not a team in the NL or the AL that can stop this team. It's the IL that can stop this team. But outside of injuries, what would be your biggest concern for the 2025 Dodgers?
All right, yeah. If I'm not allowed to say injuries, because that's always the answer. But if I'm not allowed to say injuries, the answer is defense. Because like we talked about, the outfield defense has potential to be spotty. Yes, Teo is better in right field than in left field, but he's still not a range machine in right field. Obviously the Andy Paez in center, Mookie at short, Muncy at third. Even there are question marks about the defense. My hope is that the offense and the pitching are more than enough to make up for any defensive flaws. But we saw up close and personal last year how defensive flaws can derail a team in October. It worked in the Dodgers' favor last year. And if I have a concern, it's that.
Okay, who's going to finish with the most home runs?
Ohtani. He's going to hit 47 homers. It's going to be just a ho-hum. Oh, I'm challenging now to have the second most homers in a season in Dodger history too, along with the most. Shohei Ohtani is going to hit 47. Muncy's going to have 34. Mookie's going to have 21. Freddie's going to have 26. Freddie unlocked something last offseason, realizing, I can turn on that ball. He's going to go back to being a doubles hitter, but he's got that in his pocket now that he can turn on an inside pitch when he wants to. Teo will hit another, 28, 29. Conforto's going to hit 25 or so. Shohei is easily going to lead the team in homers. Yeah,
Freddie certainly can turn on an inside pitch. Just ask Nasty Nestor Cortez about that one, who he thinks that they were the better team. But I'll digress on that one. Okay, who's going to be the team Cy Young, the best starting pitcher for the Dodgers in 2025?
Blake Snell, because if we're talking Cy Young, we got to factor in quantity. I think Blake Snell's going to lead the team in innings pitched, which is funny because workhorse is not necessarily Blake Snell's MO, but on this Dodgers team, he will be the workhorse, and he's going to be awesome. He'll have, maybe not the best ERA, but, one of the best ERAs and significantly more innings pitched than the other guys.
All right, it's tough to have a breakout player on a team that already has so many stars, but does any player come to mind?
I guess it's got to be, I don't know. Depends on how you define breakout.
Dalton Rushing in the postseason. Let's go.
Dalton Rushing, NLCS MVP. I can get on board with that. Michael Conforto could have what would be considered a breakout, more of a comeback season, I guess, than a breakout. Yeah. Breakout guy probably has to be younger. This Dodgers team isn't really built on youth. So maybe I'll give you one. Ben Kasperius. I said the other night on Locked on Dodgers, I think Ben Kasperius has the stuff to be one of the best closers in baseball a few years from now. And I think we're going to see the beginning of that. I think Ben Kasperius in 2025 is going to be, not just a step ahead of where he was. I think he's going to be one of the best relievers the Dodgers have and one of the best relievers in baseball.
I love that take. I think that stuff plays. The velocity's up as a reliever. You look at stuff plus, the only thing that wasn't above average was the four-seam fastball, and that fastball has gotten better during this spring. So I love that take right there. Okay, I think I know the answer to this one. Who is going to be the team MVP?
By default, just like the National League MVP, it's going to be Shohei Ohtani unless something goes wrong, because nobody can match what he can do on both sides of the ball. Shohei would be the likely choice, even if he didn't pitch at all this year. The fact that he's probably going to pitch, 80 innings too. Yeah, easy choice as team MVP.
All right, who do you want to see the Dodgers play in the World Series? Who would be your dream World Series matchup for the Dodgers?
If I had a crystal ball and knew they were going to win, obviously I'd like to get revenge on the Astros. They beat the Yankees. Now I'd like to see them beat the Astros. I can't think of many teams I'd rather have them lose to in the World Series than the Astros again. And so without that crystal ball, I'd rather have them play the White Sox in the World Series. Give me the worst team, because all that really matters is the Dodgers win the World Series. But if I had a crystal ball and knew that, who would I rather have them see them beat in the World Series? It's the Astros.
the baseball, Rob Manfred is just licking his fingers thinking about a Miguel Vargas versus the Dodgers narrative. I mean, just imagine that revenge series, Miguel Vargas. Okay, do you have a wins prediction? Are you ready to throw out your wins prediction for the season? Are we thinking 117? Are we going past the 06 Cubs and the 01 Mariners?
I think that's a possibility. I wouldn't predict that because for me, I think if you are on paper a 117 win talent team, I think it's really hard to win 117 games because that means you're going to clinch the division in August. You're going to be setting everything up for October. You're going to be resting guys. You're not going to keep your foot on the gas. I think in order to win 117, they'd have to be a 125 win talent team, which this team might be. But I think it's more realistic to think, they probably have the talent to win 115-ish games, and so they'll probably win 108 to 110 because they will start thinking about October a little bit earlier. It's just really hard to play up to your potential when you don't need to, for a lot of good reasons.
This is where I'm at. I want to see 115 in the regular season, 11 in the postseason, and then you pass that 98 Yankees team for most wins for an entire season, regular season and postseason combined, because that 98 Yankees team, 125 wins. I think that'd be special. Okay, last question here. The Dodgers Gold Program jerseys, which one you copping? Are you going Freddie? You going Shohei? I know you're a big Dodger merch guy. I don't know how many bobbleheads you got. Got to be in the 2,000 mark at this point. But do you like the jersey? Which one are you picking up?
I actually don't buy many jerseys. I think jerseys are too expensive. And I think, honestly, for jerseys, I think fans should wear blue jerseys, not replica jerseys, because blue looks better in the crowd. And so for me, I'm not going to buy a gold jersey. I did see they have like the T-shirt jerseys, the jerseys, where it's the Dodger blue with the gold lettering. I might get one of those. And, unfortunately for me, the answer to which one am I getting usually comes down to which one do they have available at my size. But Ohtani, Shohei and Mookie are my two first choices these days for guys whose shirts I'd like to wear.
I think for me, Freddie's the move just because of the Grand Slam, because of the World Series MVP. So that'd be my move. That's an interesting point because you look at Dodger Stadium, everyone's got the white jerseys on. You don't see all the blue like you see in some other stadiums, but like the Dodger home whites, the wedding gown white, it's tough to top. But Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here on Dodgers Dugout Live. Don't go Yasiel Puig on us and go 110 miles per hour and get pulled over. You're going to be just fine at opening day. But thank you so much for joining us. You can follow Jeff Snider. Go listen to his podcast, the Locked On Dodgers podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, free and available, wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On, do my Locked On Rams spiel here. But that's going to do it for this episode of Dodgers Dugout Live. But Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll catch up with you on opening day, my man.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dougie.
You got it. There he goes. Jeff Snider, one of the great Dodgers ball knowers in the game. Man, got into it. I think he's Jeff Snider's the man. He's really second to none when it comes to Dodger baseball, in my opinion. A couple of quick comments here before we get out of here. Just Minx, congrats on 120K. Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. When we started, getting into this channel, I mean, we were far behind the other Dodgers channels out there, and you guys really have made this what it is. Really, this is all about you guys, the fans out there watching and listening every single day. I remember the first video I did for the solo one was a Mookie Betts video that got like 1,000 views after he just signed a 12-year, $365 million contract. I was like, how do you only get that many views for a big contract like that? Things have changed a lot around here, and it's all thanks to you guys. Matty Man 5 Dodge, Kirsch named the right to be on the mural. Yeah, I mean, I someone had a really interesting tweet that they were like hating Kirsch is weird. Dodgers fans hating Kirsch is weird. Yeah, it couldn't be weirder. It absolutely, it's crazy to me. I think that tell me you're not a bandwagon fan without telling me you're not a bandwagon fan, and that is your thoughts on Clayton Edward Kershaw, because you love all these. You go in the garage and you see the Bentley and the Rolls and the Lambo and the Ferrari with Shohei and Mookie and Freddie and all these guys that we have now. He was our guy. He was all we had. I mean, he had Greinke, and there were some stars along the way, Hyunjin Ryu and some great players, but he was that 3-time Cy Young Award winner MVP. And I do think there is something to the fact that this could be his final season. Let's give him his flowers this year. They're not going to announce some farewell tour, but every time he toes the slab every time he's on the bump. You got to appreciate a Clayton Kershaw day. We got to El Rojas, Blair. El Rojas, Blair Witch, worst film ever. Can't get those 2 hours back. The projector went on fire. It was crazy. Yeah, have you guys ever walked out of a movie? Let me know down below which movie it was. Claudia 11, Dodgers Nation, anything new with Bobby Miller? Yeah, so Bobby Miller has begun throwing again. He did have that setback during spring training when he took a 106-mile-per-hour line drive off the dome against Michael Busch. But, yeah, he's going to be in AAA starting the season down in AAA. Did make just one appearance during spring training, but that comebacker definitely set him back. But he is going to start really ramping things up. He went through the concussion protocol and he's faced hitters and he's making his way back. So I think Bobby Miller is going to get his opportunity this season, and we'll wait and see. LA Fanatic, Arenado is destined to be the Dodgers third baseman. Yo, D-Mac, are we still on that mission for 2026? I don't know, man. I don't know if it's time to wave the white flag and say that Arenado won't be a Dodger. But hey, let's see him change teams. Let's see him agree to a trade to another team, and I think that will be the nail in the Arenado coffin. Whether or not I think he's going to be on the Dodgers or not, I do think that he's going to have a really good resurgent season. I don't think that he's completely washed like people out there say about Nolan Arenado. Michael O'Brien, Andy Pages is a superior hitter over James Outman. I appreciate James Outman, but I am really liking Andy Pages these days. Who do you prefer, D-Mac? For me, it's always the bat. If you can hit, you're going to stick. If you want the dub, you got the slug, right? And Andy Pages is someone that's raked against lefties. He is someone that you look at his batted ball profile as far as hard contact. He has a higher ceiling as an offensive player. That swing just plays more at the big league level. I think for James Outman, the truth about James Outman, I talked to him in Tokyo. He's got a great attitude. No one's going to outwork the guy, but he needs to be a player that's getting a lot of opportunities on either a bad team or just a team that's going to let him fail and get through 300 to 500 plate appearances. And unfortunately, he doesn't have that type of leash with the Dodgers. So I do think that Outman has potential. Only issue, closer to 30 than he is to 20. He's 28 years old soon. So you look at the prospect status of him and just kind of where he is. If I'm James Outman, I'm almost thinking to myself, man, like I love the Dodgers. It's great to be in this winning organization, but at some point he needs a chance to play. And it kind of makes you wonder if they're going to give him that opportunity with another team if he doesn't find a way to secure a role or even get the opportunity to secure a role with this team. Ellis Shiva Jones, I'm wondering how Freddie's rib is. He's not hitting. So Freddie Freeman is feeling much better. He did talk to reporters yesterday in Anaheim. And the thing with Freddie is, look, I mean, one swing and you can be back where you were. But, yeah, he's going to be ready to go. He's feeling a lot better. And, yeah, we'll wait and see. I think with Freddie, it's just about making sure that if there's any little tweak that you get him out of the lineup as soon as possible. We've got to Ellis Shiva Jones. Muncie's bat is looking good. Home run yesterday. How many homers do you think Muncie will have this year? Good question. I'm going to say he has a 28 home run season. And the reason I say that is I need to see him have success against lefties again, because if he's not having success against southpaws, I think you will see Kike playing against lefties a good amount of time at third. I think he's going to get the opportunity early on. And if he stays healthy, I think that he'll be a 28 home run guy. He's that good. Michael O'Brien, it is without a doubt a critical year for CT3. Can't say anything about his versatility because he is next level, but his bat has been currently bad and suspect. Yeah, look, that's who he is. But hey, no one's going to tell you this, but he did hit 300. I think it was 317 for the last 6 weeks of the season. So, like we talked about a lot on the show, I mean, he's not going to be the difference between the Dodgers winning or losing a World Series. Yvonne Kirsch is Dodgers royalty. That's a great way to put it. Give you a let's go Dodgers for, I'll give you a home run for that, actually. BT Fouts, correction. Kirsch didn't contribute on the field. The dude's mere presence is a contribution. You know, the funny thing about the Kirsch situation now is like people are just over the top with their praise of him, like me, or they're like, get this guy off my team. There's no in between right now for Kirsch for whatever reason. Kirsch carried this team for 16 years. Blake wants his locker next to curse for a reason. That's from Shirts. Matty Man 5, Dodge, no way Mookie plays tonight. Matty Man Dodge, they should give Mookie at least 2 weeks to get his strength back. I agree. I'm of that camp as well. But you got to trust the doctors. You got to trust Mookie Betts. And if they think that he's not going to potentially injure himself because of this, that's the number one thing. If they think the answer to that is no, it's not going to lead to an injury, that at the worst, he's just not having success on the field, then I think that I have to feel okay with it for sure. But that is going to do it for this episode of Dodgers Dugout Live. Long show today. Special thanks to Jeff Snider. He was fantastic. And special thanks to you guys out there. We are back from Tokyo. I think we'll do some takeaways from my Tokyo trip. We'll do that at some point. But exciting week. This is opening week, guys. Opening week for Dodger baseball as far as domestic opening day. And the season is upon us. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the Discord. And make sure that you're around for the post-game shows as well. We're going to be bringing those back all season long. But that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. Remember, nothing brings us together quite like Dodger baseball. And until next time, think blue, bleed blue, and I'm out.